Afternoon, everybody. I'm actually coming to in the early evening here in Minnesota, about 5 o'clock. I had a bit of a shake up in my schedule today. We'll do a quick episode today, but I have some questions for you all. We're approaching episode number 500 in about a week and a half. And I've been throwing different ideas around for something special. And one thing I've thought of that might be kind of cool is have those of you who love the channel, watched it for some length of time, doesn't matter how long. If you want to just send me a quick little video, and maybe I could kind of make a little collage of people's thoughts about this channel and what they appreciate about it. And no one might be interested in that. I don't know. Maybe there are some people who want to say, we love the channel and this is what it's done for me. This is what it's brought me. And I don't know, it's just an idea. That way it gives you all a bit of face time as well. So because I know a lot of you guys comment to each other, and maybe this will help us put faces to some of those names. So those of you who comment on a regular basis or are part of this community on a regular basis and like to, watch some, if not a lot of the episodes, by all means, send me a little 2-minute video and I'll see what I can do. Maybe putting some stuff together that might be kind of fun. I guess I have a few other ideas in the hopper as well. So I guess I'm going to see how people respond to that idea before I make any conclusions. But I do know there's a lot of people out there that have a lot to share and will look great on camera. So I'll be happy to share the stage, I guess, on this 500th episode. Maybe share your favorite record. What you love about the channel, where you're from, of course. Just what you love about jazz. I think that would be the most important thing to add in there is what's your relationship with jazz and why do you love jazz? And make a little montage of people's thoughts in the community. It'd be fun to see. So I'm glad you guys have all dug the last few episodes about finding your musical fingerprint and making your own journey. And I think it's fun to hear so many positive feedbacks and responses to a lot of that stuff. I got a short little episode for you today. We talked about buying records from Japan recently, and now we're talking about buying records from Discogs. And Discogs is a great site. You can get a lot of great vinyl on there. It's very specifically organized so that every title that you search for, it'll show you all the releases so far that they've cataloged. And so once in a while, you'll find something, especially when you get to obscure little small jazz labels, you'll find something that's not listed yet, and then you can add it. I've had a few Riverside early 200 series records that weren't listed when I first started doing this. There's some Bethlehem stuff that wasn't listed when I first started doing this. So you do see the knowledge base growing constantly. But Discogs has a pretty extensive catalog of every release and every just where a jazz record was made, mono, stereo, Japanese, European, American reissues. It'll have them all. And you'll see how some of those Argo titles have 1 or 2 pressings, and some of those Blue Note titles have 25 different issues, and then there's rock records where there's 50, 60, 70 versions of something, including being printed in 30, 40 different countries, that can make it pile up pretty quickly. But Discogs is a great site. I think it's underused by today's collectors, honestly. There's hundreds of thousands of people who are part of it. There's a lot of great sellers on there. A lot of the most famous sellers on eBay also sell on Discogs, vice versa. It's a different beast than eBay. You're going to get a wider range of vinyl quality on Discogs. I think it's graded fairly, but I think there's certain stuff that doesn't get onto eBay that Discogs will list that stuff. They'll be like, it's an old pressing of this, it's not in the greatest shape, which can be a great way to find a really expensive record sometimes for a decent price, and then you hope that your needle rolls through it just fine, and you get lucky sometimes. You get a record for a steal. I use Discogs a lot, and I usually cross-reference what I can find on eBay and on Discogs. What's nice is Discogs gives you a lot of information right away. When you search a record, it tells you almost instantly. You can go to vinyl or disc, and then you can select what region you want to buy for. If you just want to be in America, just want to be in Europe, just want to be in Japan, the whole world, and it'll tell you how many presses of that vinyl are available, and then you can break it down and find out which pressings they are, and so you know what you're paying for. You're not gonna think you're getting an old record and getting a new one, and vice versa. With eBay, there can be a lot of confusion. Amazon's even worse. Amazon uses a lot of stock photos, so you don't know the record you're buying hardly at all. When it comes to used vinyl on eBay, on Amazon, I'd be really cautious. I do want to shout out to the ABA. This was the Memphis Sounds, and basketball, the black community in America, has had a large impact in a lot of urban centers. And so in the New Orleans area got a basketball team in the 70s. They called it the New Orleans Jazz in the NBA. Of course, they ended up in Utah, which is one of the great travesties in sports history. However, Memphis, which is just up the river, for those of you who don't know, they got an ABA team in probably the same era, early 70s, I'm going to guess. And they called them the Memphis Sounds for a while because Memphis had a lot of that rhythm and blues, that soul. It's funny how there's not really jazz musicians coming out of Nashville at all. So far in my trading card series, I've not come across a Nashville musician. Probably about 8 or 10 Tennessee natives, most of them from the Memphis area. But Memphis has a lot of blues, a lot of rhythm and blues, a lot of jump blues, and a lot of jazz. And it's a great city, so the Memphis Sounds. So one more example of how important black music was in a lot of these urban centers. Sadly, this team didn't have a very good track record, nor did the ABA. They were also called the Memphis Pros for a year, the Memphis Sounds for a year or two. Then I think they became the Memphis Tams. And a tam is a hat that black men in the 70s wore a lot. If you look at a guy like Donny Hathaway, he wears a tam. I think Curtis Mayfield does at times. It's something you see a lot in 70s blaxploitation films and Shaft, that tam, that style of hat. So they called themselves the Tams for a while, which I think is a great name for a basketball team as well. But anyway, just a cool aside. So Discogs is a fun place to shop, and you can get some real bargains there. You know what you're paying for in terms of what pressing you're going to get. I find most of the people grade as honestly as eBay. Yeah, I've had a few bad experiences, but I almost always get a refund when I do need to. For the most part, I find it a better resource than eBay. eBay is going to be one of the collectible, high bid volume stuff. And even sellers, they're going to put their higher ticket items on eBay and let those auctions roll up. And the most dangerous sellers on eBay are the ones who have a lot of followers. I think I've said that before, but if you're looking at a record on a site and they have 7,000 followers that get the email about their new jazz sale, there's going to be a lot of people looking, watching, and bidding on any records of value. Versus if you find something on eBay that's got 26 followers, kind of an unknown seller, you might get a great record for a steal if no one else happens to be looking for it that day. Because the difference is that big seller that's well known sending out those email alerts, so everyone's checking that guy's inventory and seeing what he's listing. So you have thousands of jazz heads going, let me see what this guy's listing today. Funk You Sounds, Paper Stacks, Carolina Soul, those are great sellers that have great jazz auctions on a regular basis. Once or twice a month, they'll have a great jazz auction. But you won't get a good deal because there's so many people bidding on those records. You might bid anyway, and I have gotten plenty of stuff from those sellers, but you're going to pay top market value. And oftentimes you're going to pay double what you could buy it for on Discogs. So I think it's always a good measuring stick when you're looking to bid on a record, especially at one of those really reputable sellers that has a lot of followers. Go to Discogs beforehand and see what the record's going for in various conditions. And then set your limits on the auction via those numbers. Because if the record's selling for $40 right now on Discogs, there's no point in me letting my auction go over $36, $37, $40 plus shipping for that same record on eBay. And the second you see that record of that auction going for $87, but there's one on Discogs for $40, you really got to say, okay, unless I'm buying a lot from the seller already and have already won a lot of auctions, at some point, like, there's not worth it. I'm not going to save enough money because I'm shipping it in bulk with a bunch of other things by paying twice as much for it. So Discogs is a great way to measure what you want to pay for something on eBay. or Amazon or even anywhere else. Japanese sellers, of course, list on both as well. Face Records, like I said, I bought a few more great records from them the other day. Happy to show those to you when I get them. So Discogs is a site that should be utilized by people. I think it's more reputable than I think some people want to think it is. I've had pretty positive experiences almost across the line, and I've bought thousands of records on Discogs. I've bought thousands probably on eBay as well, but thousands of records on Discogs. And what I've done on Discogs far more often is I'll find just a bunch of stuff in a seller's store, and then I'll try to bundle it together. I love sellers who have make offers. Because if they have make an offer, I know they probably put a few more bucks on the price, knowing they're willing to take a few bucks off. And usually if you have a bunch of making offers, suddenly you can make a bunch of offers on a bunch of things. And I know most sellers, if you make an offer on one item, they sit there and they contemplate that offer on that one item at face value. If you make 13 offers on a bunch of different titles, some that are more in demand, some that aren't in demand, and I often will even send a message to the seller saying, please accept or reject all my offers. I'm offering these as a bundle package. So if you aren't happy with one of my offers, message me, maybe we can make a deal. But if don't accept three I don't want that much, and then reject the three that I do want really bad. And I don't want that. I don't want to end up with the three records I don't really care about. You know what I mean? And so I'll always say to the seller, like, here's 7, 10, 12, 15 offers. Please consider these as a package bundle deal and accept them or deny them all. And most sellers, especially if you include titles in there that are going to be tough for them to move. And that's kind of what I do. I'm at a point with my collection that I'm not looking for Kenny Dorham. I'm not looking for Lee Morgan and Donald Byrd. I'm looking for interesting little curio pieces from small labels in between the cracks, filling in gaps, getting to know the body of work that was the jazz canon in the 50s to the very detail, to the very minutia of what every label was doing and how risky they were willing to be. I think that stuff's so fascinating. How much of a chance was such and such label willing to take with the racial component, with the musical component, with the artistic approach of the record? All those things are interesting factors. And a record like Max Roach, We Insist, with the raised fist on the cover and all that, that's such a politically charged thing. There's no way Columbia or Decca would have touched that album cover. They probably wouldn't have even touched the music, and they might have done Max Roach with Coleman Hawkins and Abby Lincoln and all that. But for the most part, I don't think most of the big labels would have recorded that music for sure. And they certainly wouldn't allow you to put that cover out. So it's an interesting amalgamation of pieces that make up this collecting hobby of ours. So I'm going to show you some stuff I just got from a seller called Carolina Soul. And they have great auctions on eBay all the time. And their stuff gets pretty expensive on those eBay auctions because they have thousands of followers. And great for them. They've earned it. And they're reputable. Their grading is very to be dependable. You can depend on it. But they said they take the stuff they don't sell on eBay and have a store on Discogs where they list titles that are less desirable, more between the cracks. Maybe they went to their auction twice and didn't sell. Maybe a little too beat up to be on eBay. Maybe the cover has water damage. And so first off, I got a couple of Dennis Coffey records. And Dennis Coffey was a great Detroit jazz guitar player, but he was really more of a rhythm and blues guy. He's had some jazz edges to him. This is one of his important records on Sussex, I believe. Probably 72 or 3 on the Sussex label along with Bill Withers. And this is a bit of a later one on Westbound. And Westbound, of course, had Funkadelic and some early Ohio players. So that's just cool, but that's more R&B funk stuff for sure. And I just opened this box up. It's a nice box, as I'm going to show you here. Carolina Soul's got the stickers on it. Just came in the mail today. So you're seeing all these for the first time with me. So the first thing that showed up here is on the Corral label, which is a subsidiary of Decca. 52nd Street Scene, Tony Scott and the All-Stars. What a cool cover. Love the urban feel of that. I think it's a stereo. It is a stereo because of the banding on the top there. But if you listen to the band members who are playing as a part of this all-star session, and you see why this is definitely a no-brainer. Tony Scott, first of all, was friends with Bill Evans going back to the early days of them in the jazz scene. A great clarinetist. And he got into some really interesting kind of meditational music later in his career. But here we got Coleman Hawkins, Pee Wee Russell, J.C. Higginbottom, Joe Thomas, Al Casey, Tommy Flanagan, Jimmy Nepper, George Wallington, Oscar Pettiford, Sonny White, Denzel Best, Wilbur DeParis, Al Cohn, Red Rodney, Mondell Lowe, Roy Haynes, Gene Ramey, and Walter Bolden. So it's a pretty insane group of musicians, and I'm sure this sucker's going to cook, actually. It looks like it's from a few different sessions, which with that many musicians, you can kind of figure it would be. But looking forward to giving that a spin, and we'll see how that goes when I get to it. Next thing on my list is Decca. Again, Decca had a great little jazz sub-series called the 9200 sequence. And it says right there, jazz. That's kind of sunny, isn't it? 9200. And those great George Russell records are in the 9200 sequence. But the first 10 or so titles all had animals on the cover. And this is very warm for jazz. Ralph Burns and the Quintet Heard. And Ralph, of course, was a great arranger and composer from this era. It's a beautiful old Decca. Not something that's going to be too sought after. And so I literally paid $2-3 for a lot of these records. And trombones, you got Irby Green, Zoot Sims, Milt Hinton, Barry Galbraith, Eddie Costa's on this, Bill Byers, Al Cohn, Nick Travis. It's a pretty all-star session once again. Looks like it's from 3 different settings as well, 9207. And so anything in that Decca 9200 sequence is noteworthy. There's some really strong titles in there. Like I said, the first 10 or so have animals on the cover like that. And then you get the more experimental covers with like the George Russell with New York and some of that. So this is a Johnny Beecher record on CRC. And Johnny Beecher is the same guy as Plas Johnson, a great baritone player, tenor player. I think he played the flute as well. Just a real Pink Panther style. He's got some Earl Bostic roots in him, but he's got his own roots. And Plas was an institution on the West Coast. He was a member of the Wrecking Crew, so just a real foundational player out there. And I think he actually was on the Pink Panther, if my memory serves me. He was just that kind of stylist too. This is on the Corral label again. Swing Softly Sweet Sampson. Edgar Sampson and his orchestra. And this is something my buddy Scott Baldwin told me about a while back. And Sampson on the Decca label, Corral label, played with Basie or Ellington for a while. I can't remember right now. I think it was maybe Ellington, Edgar Sampson. But a great player. I guess he was a pretty important part of that orchestra at times. And I didn't really know his name very well. Making the trading cards, it was something I was discussing with him about. And so this is my first Edgar Sampson record, and I'm looking forward to digging into that. Next, what have we got? We got more Decca 9200 sequence. And this is the mellow sound of Don Elliott and his choir. Again, 9200, again, the animal. This is 9208. So I almost have all of these now. Slowly been filling that series in. There's been no urgency with any of this stuff. It's just I like to get them when I come across them. And they were all cheap here in Carolina Soul's Discog store. And they were all making offers as well. This is the mellow sound Don Elliott. And I love Don Elliott. He's got some important work early on at Riverside in 55, 56. He's got some important work at Bethlehem, 54, 55. Just a great multi-instrumentalist. He does some work at Savoy on the Vibes. He plays trumpet. He plays the mellophone. He's a singer. He's just a multi-instrumentalist. I think he does French horn sometimes. He plays a lot of different horns, percussion instruments, and on top of that, he's a great singer. He does a great record at Bethlehem where he's just singing. But this is Don Elliott and his choir, the mellow sound. It's probably going to be fairly saccharine, just by the sounds of it with a choir. But it's a cool cover. I think I paid $2 or $3 for that one as well. And again, it's probably the last Don Elliott record from the 50s that I didn't have, which again, I collect labels and I collect artists. So you always want to fill in those gaps. This is a cool record here. I like this cover actually. Azure. It's by the great King Curtis, who was a fantastic Texas sax player, had that kind of thick, warm tone, a lot of rhythm and blues underpinnings in his playing, some jump blues, some crossover rhythm and blues. Big fan of King Curtis's work at Prestige is outstanding. This is on the Everest label, and Everest, we kind of know them more for their traditional series that came out in the 60s and 70s where they're repackaging a lot of earlier pre-war stuff. But Everest did have a series, I think it's 5,000 series, and the stereos were 1,100 maybe. I can't remember exactly, but Everest has some great titles in that first 100 records that they put out. And I have probably about 40 of them now. And that's what I've been looking for a while. The cover's awesome. I just love that kind of graphic design from the 50s with the different colors of blue. It's a little dated, of course, but it still warms my heartstrings, I guess you could say. Moving on to a Clef record here. This is a cool piece, I guess. And it looks like it's a Stone Martin cover, and it is. It's from the Dance series, One Night Stand, Charlie Barnett and his orchestra. Charlie Barnett was a white swing band leader. He often had black musicians in his band, which really wasn't that common even at this point in the early 50s. Barnett is a fantastic band leader with really peppy, hard swinging charts. I mean, the Barnett group really was a special type of swing. And it was something that a lot of people in the white community loved. They loved Charlie Barnett. And like I said, he had some of the hardest swinging bands of that time. Kenton was getting a little more experimental. Herman was swinging pretty hard as well. But again, the great cover by David Stone Martin on the old Clef trumpet player label. Just a cool old piece. You can smell the church hymnals. And you can smell why anybody would want a new record when you can get old records like this that just smell wonderfully. And you got the checklist on the back of all the Clef releases. I think the C100s were 10 inches initially, and they switched to 500, I think, when the LP era dawns in 55, 54. And then, of course, Verve, which is part of Clef. Norman Granz creates Verve to kind of put all of his other little labels together under one umbrella. And so a lot of stuff on Verve, especially in the early 8000 series, is repackaging of Clef and Norgran and stuff they licensed to Mercury. It's quite a hodgepodge, and it's tough to sort it all out, if I'm honest. But I'm excited to hear this. Old Clef, the vinyl. Let's see what it looks like. It looks pristine. And again, probably $3 I paid for that. And just because people aren't looking for it in the same way, you can get a lot of great, beautiful pieces with great David Stone Martin album covers for very, very affordable prices. And again, this was shipping from the Carolinas, so it took maybe under a week to get here. And my shipping, I think they only charge, one of them only charges $5 flat rate no matter what you buy. I think that might be Funky Sounds. I think the shipping on this might have been like $12 or something like that, but it wasn't bad at all. One more record from the Decca 9200 sequence. I found 3 Decca 9200s with the Animals. Thought that was pretty cool. Again, I think I paid the most for this one. It was $10 I paid for this one. That's in pristine condition. It's the great Belgian mouth harp, harmonica player, and guitar player, Jean Toots Thielman, harmonica with orchestra. I don't know where this is recorded. Let's see if we can see. Doesn't. Irby Green's on this. It might say on there somewhere if this was recorded in America or if it was recorded in Belgium. He was fairly popular for a while. And again, so you have those 3 records with the Animals on them. It's a pretty cool series when you see the entire strip of them. Now, also from Carolina Soul here, this is on the Prestige label, 74-75, putting it kind of smack in the middle of the soul jazz era at Prestige. They've kind of folded up the new jazz tent at this point, and they're pretty much just focusing on that gravy chitlin kind of soul jazz. Of course, they've signed Jimmy Witherspoon at this point, who was on the West Coast for a long time doing jump blues, small kind of groups that were blues groups where they had the horns added in there. They were playing up-tempo to mid-tempo numbers. It wasn't a slow blues electric guitar and just like a mouth harp. These were more crossover efforts with, like I said, you have a couple horn players, an electric bass player, maybe upright bass player, The Jump Blues was a fun thing, full of energy and life. And when you listen to these guys performing live, it's fantastic stuff. I'm a big fan of Jimmy Witherspoon. I got a number of his records on several different labels. And this is a nice looking copy here, 74, 75, with the blue Trident logo. The vinyl looks pristine. And again, Jimmy Witherspoon's not someone that's searched for quite the same way. And I like the name of this record. It's called Blues for Easy Livers. Not lovers, livers. Which is kind of a fun little word play there, I guess. Also now on the wonderful Prestige label, 7456, so just a few records later, 74, a few records earlier, is Stomping, Shirley Scott, Don Patterson, Lockjaw Davis. And so you have two organ players here with Shirley Scott and Don Patterson, along with Lockjaw Davis. Interesting cover. Not a super big fan of this. See, now, Reed Miles made all that stuff he did work. A lot of the imitators, that's the problem with being an imitator. You don't always pull it off. You don't really quite always get it. And this is a really bad album cover that looks really dated. It looks like it could be from Hee Haw. And it looks like it is from different sessions, thus explaining the different organ players. Because two organ players would be kind of a mess, I think. And then you have Ron Albright on the piano on Group A, which is 3 tracks on here. So I love Ron Albright. He's a great pianist. Peck Morrison, Roy Haynes, Wally Richardson on the guitar. So should be fun to listen to that. We'll ignore the cover. It looks like circus popcorn, and we all make mistakes. One of the biggest pieces I was really happy to find there, and I almost didn't find this, was a cool 10-inch on the Tampa label. And the Tampa label was an LA-based small label on the West Coast. And they do a lot of really cool titles, some Art Pepper. This is Shorty Rogers, who was a big part of the West Coast scene, working with Canton and Herman. I think he worked with both. I can't remember. But he ends up being quite successful on his own with his jazz giants. And he makes some really big selling records on the major labels. And Shorty Rogers was the kind of guy that had fairly broad appeal nationally in the 50s as a jazz guy. So white cats across the country were buying Shorty Rogers records, making them pretty easy to come by. However, this Tampa 10-inch is not easy to come by. This is a pretty early piece. And again, it's the Lighthouse All-Stars, which is always an outstanding group, featuring Howard Rumsey, we talked about on Contemporary label. Well, they allowed him to have the billing here, Shorty Rogers, on the Tampa label. Howard Rumsey's still on the bass. You have Frank Patchen, Milt Bernhardt, Jimmy Joffrey, Shelly Manne. I mean, there's some really great talent out here on the West Coast. So this kind of hokey 1954, probably 10-inch on the Tampa label with the light. This is a great piece. I was thrilled to find it. And I've seen 12-inch reissues of it, but to find the old 10-inch, and this almost finishes off what I need from the Tampa label. You know, they only have about 30 releases. And cool piece. Cool cover. And again, I think I paid $8 for it or something. I have to look. But this whole purchase was under $100. Next thing I got here, fantastic, on the Regent label. And Regent is the sister label of Savoy out of Newark. And if you look at the back, you can tell that's a Savoy if you know your Savoys. Jazz, pretty. And this is the great Joe Burton trio with Roger Nichols and Bob Eskew. And I don't know much about those guys. I do know the Regent label, and some of these pieces on the Regent label are really affordable and easy to not easy to find, but easy to grab when you find them because there's not a lot of people looking for them. I think Scott Baldwin would probably be my main competition at this point for old Regents. This is number 6036. And if you look for old Regent records, again, so Sister of Savoy, Regent records about 6040 through about 6070 are outstanding. It's very modern, cutting edge, kind of synonymous with what's happening in Savoy in 57, 56, synonymous with happening at Prestige, Riverside, Blue Note. They're kind of a part of that whole scene. Guys like Lee Morgan, Donald Byrd, Hank Mobley are making early records at Savoy and then going on to Blue Note and Prestige and other labels. So there's always some pretty good stuff being recorded by Herman Lubinsky and Ozzy Cadena at the Savoy Regent mothership. And there's also some regional talent as well. I love the story of Newark, New Jersey. It's a real kind of down and out place that had a real moment of golden popularity in the early 20th century. Being a satellite city of New York City, it's right there in the harbor on the New Jersey side, of course, a little bit south, more across from Staten Island. Newark was a great city. It lost a lot of its population. There was a lot of white flight. It's got that great, shiny cover that we love. So I'm looking forward to giving that a spin. Joe Burton Trio. I think I have something by his on Capitol, if I remember. Could be somebody else, though. And then we got a Duke Ellington record here on Columbia, Midnight in Paris. Duke with his orchestra. It's got a great album cover. Just a wonderful album cover. It's a two-eye release. I'm guessing it's for the late 50s. 59, probably 60 in there. We got Jimmy Hamilton, Cat Anderson, Ray Nance, Shorty Baker, Bill Berry, Lawrence Brown, Johnny Hodges, Russell Procope, Paul Gonzalez, Harry Carney, Aaron Bell's on the bass, Sam Woodard on the drums, and Ellington's on the piano. So it's a fairly awesome group. I didn't read a few names there, but it's a great group. It's not an Ellington I've seen a lot, to be honest. So I'm going to give that a spin probably tomorrow morning. And I'm always down with taking a little bit of Paris, especially with Duke Ellington leading the way. Got a few more records here to show you in this box. Again, it was a pretty fun haul. This is Pacific Jazz now from the West Coast. This is after they switched to the PJ series. They start with a 1200 sequence at Pacific. This is after the 10-inch. They go 1200s. And they start over at 400. They do about 12 titles. And they scrap that series. And they start over again at the number 1, PJ1. And this would be PJ like 10 or 12. It's a fairly early PJ 22. There you go. You see it right there in the corner. So it's a weird album cover. It almost looks too modern for the time. I think it's the fonts maybe. It looks kind of modern for sure, but this is apparently the real cover. Red Mitchell cello debut at the Renaissance, with the great Jim Hall, the great Frank Butler on drums, Jimmy Braun, and Frank Strazzeri. So that's an exciting little find. And it's one of the early PJ series I did not have yet. So I was glad to kind of find that. And then another Pacific title here is this Having a Ball record by Cy Toof, Richie Kamuka, Harry Edison, Leroy Vinegar, Art Pepper, Bill Holman, Bill Jolly. And I don't think it's a compilation. I think it's just a reissue of an earlier Cy Toof record. But great photos on the back of these gentlemen. Great cover, from the day. This isn't that 400 sequence I was telling you about. I think it's like 409, 410. There it is in the corner. 410. And like I said, the 400 series was a short sequence. And I'm pretty sure this is a reissue of something that came out under Cy Toof's name in the 1200 sequence, like 55 or 56. Not positive. I don't remember all these players being on that record. We've got the Cy Toof Octet, Cy Toof Quintet. So it looks like there's some great players here, including Sweets Edison. Fantastic. Leroy Vinegar, Richie Kamuka, Pete Jolly, Johnny Mendel, Harry Edison, Art Pepper, Bill Holman. So a lot of great talent on that session. And a pretty cool cover as well on the Pacific Jazz imprint. So some cool stuff there. And again, they package them nicely. They put everything in sleeves. They actually sent these poly sleeves in with each of these records. So they do a nice job, even on these like lesser expensive titles, putting them in plastic sleeves, putting nice modern poly sleeves in there if you want them. They give you the original sleeve as well. I've been thrilled with my purchases from Carolina Soul. And I can't recommend enough to people, if you want to get some great records for a great price, and you don't want to spend a fortune, and you don't want to spend a lot on shipping, go to a place like Carolina Soul on Discogs and just see what's there. And of course, the deeper one's knowledge is, the more you can kind of be like, oh, that's a great deal. But it's seriously, it's a very cool, it's a very cool place to get a lot of great stuff. They have so much inventory. They do these great auctions all the time. And so I think on some level, they're just trying to move along product. And the stuff they know is going to sell for good money on auction, they put that stuff on eBay, and all this other stuff, like, let's just move it along. We'll put it on Discogs for a decent price. And if you know what you're doing, you can get great deals still. I mean, I could pull up my invoice. A lot of these records cost me $2, $3, $4. Still today. Old pressings, original pressings, beautiful condition. The vinyl's mint, shiny, glossy. It's really crazy how few people out there realize how much great old music is still out there to be had. If you're willing to look past the Miles Davises and the John Coltrane's and the Lee Morgans, there's a lot of great music. And you might be surprised, again, that musical fingerprint. When you find your own path, you might actually love a lot of this stuff more than some of that not so easy to listen to jazz that's being so professed as essential. And I love John Coltrane's Love Supreme, that live Love Supreme. I feel sorry for any new jazz person who bought that thinking that was essential. It's a long way from essential. There's probably 5,000 jazz records that are more essential to own than that. What made it essential is it was somewhat limited, but it'll be reissued down the road. Don't worry about it. So anyway, that's today's episode. Hope y'all enjoyed that. I'm going to probably publish it tomorrow morning, but I'm going to probably edit it tonight. So you're going to see tonight's sunset on my face, but tomorrow morning it's going to come up, and who knows what the weather will be when I post it. So y'all be safe. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't. If you want to go to my Patreon page and support the channel, it's always appreciated. There's a description, the link below for my merchandise store. Some great t-shirts and hoodies. That's always appreciated as well. And if you have ideas for that 500th episode, if you want to send a little short to me and tell me what you love about jazz and what you love about this channel, I think that might be a cool little tribute episode to this entire community, because it's not just me that makes this. Y'all are every bit as important. And so it's just a tip of the cap to y'all if y'all want to participate in that. So let me know in the comments below. Y'all be safe. Have a great day. Peace.